Okay, now we can actually get started. Okay.
Better late than never.
So one of the things that we need to cover today, of course, is fraud phone calls. There's been a lot of changes over the last couple of years that we're seeing a lot more of them. Some of the reasons in the background behind it, I'll actually cover some of that. But we'll go over the different types of phone calls and all those kinds of things. This is kind of an odd threat. It's only a threat because people answer the calls or they do whatever the person on the phone is saying. So just by hanging up the phone on some of these calls, you've already diffused any kind of threat. So this is different than other stuff that might happen with the computer. You don't have a lot of control over a virus or different things that happen. But with a fraud phone call, there's no fraud if you just hang up the phone. Or if you understand what's going on during the phone call is just a scam. There's been a lot of stuff in the paper that I'm sure everybody's been seeing. In the Windsor-Essex area, we have tons of what's called the grandparent scam, as well as an investment scam, and I'll go through all the details of those kind of scams. And that way, if you guys are knowing what to expect when these people call you, you understand what the scam is. You don't feel that panic when they're telling you something over the phone, because a lot of the scams, that's what they really rely on, is getting you to panic and make rash decisions really quickly, and we'll diffuse all of that and completely take away any kind of threat that there is. So one of the things that changed that actually a lot of people don't know anything about over the last couple of years, when it got really, really bad with some of the fraud phone calls, was something, the Canada Revenue scam was one of the biggest ones. And what was happening with that particular type of scam, especially on smartphones and devices like that would have caller ID, it would actually say Canada Revenue right on your phone as you're answering it. So in the background, believe it or not, we had laws passed right across Canada that actually put some technology in place that block all these spoofed caller IDs and the fake ones and everything else. So you might still get the same phone calls now, but you'll just see it as a phone number. It won't actually say Canada Revenue on it or Microsoft or Norton. So they can't fake the caller ID anymore. And that actually started with efforts here in Windsor. And that ended up being spread right across Canada. So with the technology that we actually worked on, it was brought as a motion in Ottawa, and it was actually carried through, and they've implemented this right across Canada. So that's actually some of the people that were involved here in Windsor. Regardless of politics, our wonderful white knight, Mr. Brian Massey, was actually really, really important in getting this through in Ottawa. And this is one of the reasons why you don't see that caller ID anymore of it saying that it's Canada Revenue. So with that change and them not being able to scam people by it saying Canada Revenue on their caller ID or some of the other companies they were faking, with those changes, they've gotten a little more aggressive in other areas. So we capped up this particular problem, but other problems are still out there that we definitely have a hard time taking care of, especially with some of the phone calls and everything else. We've blocked that fake caller ID, but still with the phone number or where it's coming from and everything else, just because of technology, they're still able to put out the scam phone calls. If you report that that's a fraud phone number, they just pop up somewhere else under a different number. So we have a lot of work to do that's going to be pretty difficult to do, but definitely just to let you guys know, we're working on this, and it is something that is affecting everybody right across Canada. You had a question?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, last week I was getting phone calls with 000, like right across.
Right. Yeah, they can still fake the number.
I didn't answer it.
Well, that's good.
Just let it go to voicemail, and if
Absolutely.
it's a scam, they don't leave messages. So.
That's right. They just quickly hang up because they want to know whatever number they've called off a list. They want to know that there's a person on the other end. And more importantly, they want to know that there's a person on the other end that's willing to talk to them. So if you actually spend time talking to them on these calls, any amount of time, even if you're just kind of leading them on to try to waste some of their time or just kind of poke at them a little bit, on their end, they're thinking, well, they got you to answer. That's a start right there. If they had somebody better on the phone next time, they might be able to get you. So even by spending any amount of time talking to these guys, They will put you on a list and other scammers will keep calling. So don't bother engaging with them. It's not worth it. And even like I said, if they get vindictive or get upset with you, or they think that, the scam just didn't go through because, somebody else might get you next time, you will be on call lists and you will not be able to get them off like you can with a do not call list with the government. They will pass your phone number around and you will keep getting calls for years and years, especially if you've been scammed before. They've targeted you as somebody who's willing to fall for whatever it is, so you will continue to get calls after you've been scammed. So it's something to keep in mind, that don't even bother engaging with these guys, just hang up the phone. Okay, so with the grandparent scam, that is, like I said, something that is constantly in the news every 2-3 days throughout Essex County. I'm hearing information of somebody else getting scammed with this one. Is everybody familiar with what this scam actually is? Or is there any questions about that particular scam? Because we'll cover it anyway, but if somebody has a particular question, we can cover that instead. So, according to Windsor Police, with the grandparent scam, they have the most effective thing. Just like I said, this is a different type of threat in that you guys get to be able to diffuse this. You don't need security software, you don't need outside help, you don't need to worry about your device, you just need to hang up the phone. So one of the things that Windsor Police is asking people especially is, if you do know about this scam, make sure that this is something that you're talking to your relatives and loved ones about. Let them know that this scam exists. Talk to them about how it works, because if people already know it's a scam, then they'll just diffuse that instantly without having to worry about it. So, as the Windsor Police is saying, talk to your loved ones before the scammers do. And if you can do that, then all these scams across the county will stop instantly, because people will just hang up on them. So with that grandparent scam, they usually go one of two ways with it, but it's still something that's in common. What will happen with this particular scam is they'll call you up, and it'll either be somebody pretending to be a relative, a grandson, granddaughter, whatever, and a lot of times you may not recognize their voice over the phone, or some other reason that they can play off during the script that they're reading from. Or it might be somebody saying they're from law enforcement. One of the common ones I've heard is a lawyer calling from Kingston because your grandchild has been arrested and they need bail money and you have to pay it right now or else they're going to be locked up for the weekend. They'll throw some kind of situation at you where your grandchild needs money immediately. They've been in an accident, there's a fine, there's a ticket, there's some kind of bail money required. They use something to try and get an urgent and a reactive response from you. And that's what most of these scams rely on, is you panicking, or you being afraid, or you trying to make some decision really quick so you can get conned into it. A lot of these scams and a lot of the people that I talk to afterwards, and they're always blaming themselves. It's like, how could I fall for something so stupid? If I just thought of it, I would have called the police department in Kingston, or I would have just called this lawyer's office or seen if this was real. But that's the problem, is in the moment, that's not what you're thinking. And that's what these scams rely on. Doesn't matter what type of scam, they all rely on you making really quick, rapid decisions. And most of the time, those are usually based on panic. So it's going to leave you vulnerable to whatever they're trying to pull over you. The fake support scam, that's definitely one that I deal with a lot in my workplace as well. That's when the phone rings and they say it's Microsoft or Apple or Norton, and they notice you're having a problem with your computer. They're just calling to help you out. And of course, it's just a coincidence. They just have your phone number on a big list of people to call. And as you call people through the day, how often is it, that somebody actually has a real problem with their computer? Well, most people have some kind of glitch throughout their day. So when these guys call, it seems pretty reasonable that, oh wow, you noticed what was going on, thanks. So they're actually receptive and defer to these people, saying they're Microsoft or Norton or Apple. And that kind of puts your brain in the mode that these are somebody of authority calling you. Just like when it's them saying it's the police on the phone. So that kind of deference to authority is what, again, they rely on to create that kind of panic and rapid decision making that usually makes you more vulnerable to actually being scammed. The inheritance scam. This one has been happening, yep,
Just on the fake support scam. Because I had like 2 this week.
right.
How does that play out?
Okay, so the actual mechanics of it, usually with the fake support scam, a lot of these scams are gonna either rely on one of two things. They're either gonna ask you to get into your computer so they can help fix your device. And of course, once they do that and get into your computer, the very first thing that they're doing is they're looking in areas of your computer where passwords and information are stored. The number of times I've seen people's computers and they have all their taxes and all their information, they have passwords saved in their browser so that anytime they log into something, it'll just put the password in for you. They will go after those files instantly. Within seconds of being in your computer, they're running stuff to go and get those files from you. So that's really what they're after when they try to get in your computers. They're trying to get after your personal information that might be stored in there, or even information that might be useful for them to carry on different scams. So if I can get into and find your Facebook password, well, I can get into your Facebook, I can find out who your grandchild is. And then all of a sudden the phone's ringing. So they'll pair this up with getting information about you or getting your financial information. And sometimes they'll leave the rest of the computer alone. Other times they'll actually do something that'll damage your computer. But that's really not what they're after. What they're after is information. So pretty much if you don't know who you're speaking to or who's requesting to get into your computer, there's no scenario where any of these large companies know something's wrong with your computer. It would be nice if we lived in a world where Microsoft would actually call us when they saw something wrong, but that's not how it actually happens. So these companies do not call you at home, any of them. It doesn't matter who it is. McAfee, Microsoft, Norton, Apple. None of these companies call you at home because you're having a problem. Most of these companies, you can't even find their phone number to call them if you wanted. It's all just online and self-help stuff nowadays anyway. And again, that's the same problem with a lot of these scams is afterwards. You might realize, well, I can't even find a phone number for Apple, as if they're gonna be calling me. You think of that afterwards, but in the moment, you're panicked, you're afraid that something's wrong with your computer, or you're trusting that the person on the phone is from Microsoft because they said so. So a lot of this relies on a lot of psychology on just getting you to make rapid decisions. So to be able to diffuse a lot of these, it's really easy. You call them back afterwards. Doesn't matter who it is. They say it's Canada Revenue, they say it's the Windsor Police, they say it's RCMP, and they're coming to arrest you. Say, okay, that's nice. I'll give you a call back. None of these companies, including Canada Revenue, will be upset with you if you told them that. If you receive a legitimate call from Canada Revenue, which can happen, if you tell the person on the phone, I'll give you a call back at the office, do you have a reference number, do you have an agent name or anything like that? There's none of them that will actually get upset with you. So you can usually tell with the scam artists that as soon as you mention calling them back, they'll usually get really, really pissed off at you. So it's already a tell that you're not dealing with somebody actually from the police or actually from Canada Revenue. The inheritance scam, it's not as prevalent, but the problem is that this exact scam is the scam right across Canada that is raking in the highest number of dollars. So if you added up all the money lost to all the other scams, this one here is one where the most money is lost right across the country. So what it involves in is either by email, by phone, by text, whatever the method is of getting hold of you, they convince you that you can cash out all your RSPs, all your life savings, all this stuff, and you put it into this investment. And lately the investment has been with crypto coins or Bitcoins. So you take all your investment and all your life savings, put it into here, and we'll double it within just a couple months. And they're pretty effective at it. They're very aggressive sales. So with this particular scam, it almost seems effective. What we've found, people that are a little on the hesitant side that it might be a scam, well, a few days later, the scammers will call you back and say, hey, we've already made some money on your investment. You can pull out $1,000 if you like. And right there, that kind of tells the people, this seems legitimate. I've given them 10,000. A few days later, they're giving me $1,000 back already. This is awesome. I'll give you 30,000 now. And that's exactly what happens. They build up that trust by allowing you to take a little bit of money out as your supposed profits. So it seems very real. But if I'm a scammer and I got 10,000 out of you and I have to give 1,000 back just to keep the scam going, that's fine. I still got $9,000 and I'll probably get another 30 from you when I'm done. So they allow you to kind of trickle some money out. But if you actually get suspicious or you want to take all your money back, all of a sudden they've disappeared. You can't find them anymore. So they're getting people to literally invest their entire life savings, their pensions, their RSPs, their investments. They're cashing them out, sending it to the scammers. And like I said, they will give you a little bit of money back if you ask for it. But if you try to take all of it back, they'll disappear with your entire amount. So there has been several of these within Essex County lately, and it is a long-going scam. The inheritance scam, that's a little bit older, and some people may not fall for it, but this particular scam, it's an interesting one. So has anybody ever seen emails where it's some supposed long-lost relative and they've left you all this money? Believe it or not, there's actual real cases where that happens for a real inheritance. So there has been legal companies, lawyers and everything else that actually do go out and search to find a relative to give some money that was left behind in an estate. So because that's possible, it might be real, that's kind of what the scammers use to get people to believe that this is possible. So just like everything else, they'll have a logo on the email, they'll have some kind of information. You might even be able to look up the lawyer's office on the internet and see it's a real office. But of course, the person you're communicating with, they're not the real lawyer. But because it's possible, just like other scams, that's what the scammer kind of relies on to kind of trick you and pull you into this. So with this, usually the mechanics of this scam is supposedly some lawyer has $1 million inheritance for you. You just have to send them a little bit of money so they can process the paperwork. And it may be a little bit of money, maybe send $50 for the paperwork. Well, once you do that, you're kind of confirming to the scammer that they got you hook and sinker. So then they'll say, oh, everything looks okay, we got that $50 process, we got the paperwork taken care of, just send me your bank information, we'll send the rest of the money. And that's it, your bank's empty.
How would a legitimate inheritance come through?
Well, they certainly wouldn't be asking you for money to process it. If there was a real estate, the estate would cover a lawyer taking care of everything.
Would you get it in the mail as opposed to email?
Yeah, what I would do with something like that is if you actually got a letter like that and you think, well, it's possible, I actually have relatives over in England and this was part of my family branch. If you think it's possible, bring it to your financial institution, bring it to your lawyer, bring it to the police department. They'll look into this to see if it's actually real. The possibility that it might be is exactly what the scammers rely on. So if you think it might be, is it possible? It's rare. You'd probably be more likely to win the lottery than have this actually happen to you, but it could happen. So if it does and you think there's some reality to it, check with somebody who can actually look into it and do all the background research and actually make sure that you're not getting scammed by somebody else. The fake email and extortion scam. This one does get people chuckle once in a while, but it still is something that cons people in on the internet. So usually it starts with an email and it'll say, I've infected your computer, I can see what you're doing through your webcam, send me all this information, I'm going to tell everybody at your workplace or tell all your family members the stuff that you've been looking at on the internet. Send this amount of money or else. So basically it's an extortion, but it's completely fake. They don't have access to your webcam, they don't have a virus in your computer, none of this stuff or anything else. So it does kind of present a little bit of a chuckle for somebody who suddenly becomes paranoid that they have seen everything that I've been doing in front of my webcam. Kind of makes you think, well, what were you doing in front of your webcam? But it still is a scam that does get people in a lot of financial trouble because they think that this is real. So that kind of scam, any kind of email that you might receive saying, they have control of your computer and you better send them money or else, you can contact the police with this stuff. In general, I usually recommend any kind of scam, always contact the police and report it. With this type of scam, it's literally just a fake email. Nobody actually has information on you. There is no actual extortion person out there. It's just sent out to a random 10,000 people. So sending it to, even reporting it to the police is not really that necessary because it's just a random email, just like all the other junk emails that you receive. So if there is a situation, and there certainly has been, computers have been compromised or celebrities get their accounts online with all their photos, get that hacked and somebody might try to extort money out of them. With that situation, if it is a real situation, of course, call the police and report that and get some help with the problem. The refund scam, that is something that is still pretty prevalent. Has anybody gotten any emails or stuff like that from a company saying, here's your invoice, and what they're relying on is you look at the invoice, like I never bought anything from this company, or I never bought anything from Amazon and had it shipped somewhere. What they're relying on is that you would call them up and say, hey, this is an incorrect charge. You need to take this off my credit card. But of course, again, it's all fake. Yes?
Yeah, I one time ordered a book on Amazon, and then I was bombarded with like 1,000 emails. And Cogeco shut my email down for
Right.
3 days, and they called me and told me to change the password, and they cleared out all those thousands.
Yeah, sometimes it's hard to get to.
I will not order anything from Amazon.
Well, it's not Amazon that caused the actual problem. It's somewhere along the line.
It got caught.
Yes, and somehow some information that wasn't supposed to be out there got out there. But actually, we'll even cover it later today. Shopping and all that kind of stuff on Amazon and all those other things, it's safe to do. The other problems around it, that's where some of the problems come from. So stopping shopping from Amazon because you got the emails, I wouldn't say it's really necessary, but it's not a,
It's safety for me.
that's right, you feel better. So therefore, it's fine to do. But overall, no, it didn't actually come from the actual shopping on Amazon. Somewhere else, something got loose that shouldn't have. But we'll go over some of that too. So with this refund scam, it doesn't matter what it is. It's from your bank, it's from your credit card, it's a purchase they said you got. They'll pick companies and they'll pick courier companies, UPS, Purolator, Canada Post. You have this parcel waiting, or you have some purchase on Amazon that you didn't make. Geek Squad is another one they do. Your subscription to Geek Squad was just billed. It's like, well, I don't have a subscription, so you call them up to try to get rid of this. But of course, it's fake. There isn't actually any charge on your credit card. But in calling them, they'll go through all sorts of different things to either get your financial information, get into your computer. It's like, oh, just let me into your computer while you're logged in your bank and I'll send the transfer over. Of course, why would Best Buy need inside your computer to send you a transfer? Just send you the transfer. But again, they rely on that instant panic and getting you to comply with whatever they're telling you to do. Yeah, go ahead.
Last week it was in the news that Amazon is charging people for some subscriptions that they have not. It was only 30 days complimentary, and then it cut because you
Right.
were not even aware, and then it cut.
Yeah, your trial expired, now they're going to charge you.
Yeah.
Yeah, so,
So
and
this
that's,
was in the news.
yeah, and that's the exact thing that the scammers rely on. Is it possible you got charged something extra for Amazon? Well, yeah, of course it's possible. So that possibility with any of these is what the scammers rely on conning you with. So with the refund scam, a lot of times what'll happen is they'll try to get some banking information and try to get you to log into your bank. So let's say they charge you an extra $100. You get them on the phone and it's all just a scam call center, of course. And they say, okay, well, we'll give you the refund of your $100. And they'll get you to open up your bank so you can check the bank to make sure that your $100 went in. Again, why they would need to look at your bank account to verify A refund is kind of weird. And again, you'd probably think of that afterwards. But during it, they'll get you to log into your bank. And instead of, they'll take a fake screen, they'll do something to con you. Oh, look, I didn't send you $100 back. I sent you 10,000. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna get fired, I'm gonna be homeless, my kids will be hungry. Tell you what, send me the extra $9,000 back really quick. I won't tell anybody and I won't get fired. So they literally get people to put cash in a box and courier it to them so they don't get in trouble at their job. So basically what they're relying on is that you're good, decent people. You don't want to see somebody fired just for making a simple mistake. So this one actually relies on you being a decent human, and they're using that to basically con you. So of course, once you grab all the cash and put it in a box and ship it to this poor guy so his kids don't go homeless, that money will disappear and you'll never see it again. And of course, the bank won't insure that money taken out or whatever else. You went to the bank, you withdrew your money. There's nothing to insure. They can't stop you from taking your own money out. So a lot of times this one is, we're talking large amounts of money that gets sent. It's all sent in cash, so you can't trace it, and that money will disappear. As well as where you sent it to. It might be just a hotel room, it might be an Airbnb, it might be some temporary location. They'll gather up all the money in boxes that are sent to them, and then they disappear within 24 hours. So you can't trace them and you can't trace the money. So this is a really quick, dirty way, and it's even more dirty because it's basically abusing the fact that you're a decent person trying to help some poor guy who accidentally gave you too much money. Yes?
I heard that e-transfers are also outside the banking system.
They are. There's a small chance, depending on where it went and some other details within the system, that you might be able to get your bank to claw that back within a certain period. But overall, yeah, anything where you're transferring cash, an e-transfer or whatever else, there's not a lot of record there. Same thing if it gets transferred to a bank account. Well, they've taken the money out of that account and they're already gone. So they work on this stuff very rapidly before you can even claw that money back. So there has been situations where the boxes have been couriered out to the box of money, and the police have been there to intercept where it gets delivered. But you have to think of the amount of time if an overnight courier. You have to get the local police on board, get them out there, get everybody. So it's a very rapid, really fast thing, so it's hard to track a lot of it down.
So if I'm e-transferring to a friend or family,
Yeah.
they're to me, is there a vulnerability there?
No, there is not. There is not. And if you've done it accidentally or you've done it through a scam, you can try contacting your bank or whoever else, asking if they can get that transfer back within a set amount of time. It's possible, but I wouldn't rely on it. Yes?
See, what I was told, if you send an e-transfer and you put the password in the email that you sent, but you type the email incorrectly, that person can cash it. They've got the
password is there.
and everything else,
Yeah.
and you can't get that money back.
Well, the bank to bank, they can do their thing that might be able to get that back. And the
But if
key
you send
word
it
is
to a
might.
person.
Right, exactly. So it depends, they have to take that transfer and it has to be deposited into an account somewhere. So at their end, there's a bank involved as well. So between the two banks, there is a window where you might be able to get it back. But like I said, don't rely on that.
Yeah.
You can still make that phone call and ask them, can you get that back? I was scammed. It's possible. But overall, with anything that you're transferring money or cash or sending cash, usually it's gone. Yeah, they don't have to hit it. We have, a couple 100,000 people within Essex County. They just get a dozen of these. That's, to some of them, that's a lifetime of money. This amounts to billions and billions of dollars that these people make. So our law enforcement, RCMP, Interpol, all those kind of things, they do try to work together to get these guys. Yep, over the whole world. That's right.
Okay.
Yeah, it's hard though. Any one of these scams, whether it's an internet scam or an email or a phone call or whatever the scam is, as soon as law enforcement gets an idea of where they are, they just unplug everything and they go somewhere else. So it's hard. The amount of work that you have to do after some of these scams is almost worse than the scam itself. Because it's ongoing. You're dealing with credit monitoring, you're dealing with constantly worried about charges on your bank, you're getting phone calls year after year after year. So some of it, there's almost nothing you can do about it other than completely change your phone number, cancel your credit card and get a new number. It's a lot of work, it really is. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, definitely it is one of those situations where it's certainly better beforehand to get on top of this stuff than afterwards. I have dealt with a lot of people with the afterwards part, and it is ongoing. It takes quite a while. There is something I can definitely tell you with, if you have any issues with identity theft or issues with charges, somebody's got your bank account information or your credit card information, dealing with TransUnion is actually, they're quite helpful. There's two big credit monitoring companies in Canada. That's TransUnion, Equifax. I would say out of the two choices, TransUnion is definitely the one I would recommend. Somebody was telling me recently that they even have a program that if you have a police incident number from reporting a fraud or identity theft, that TransUnion will actually give you a certain period of time for free credit monitoring. I'd have to double check into what the details are. This is something somebody just mentioned to me recently, but overall, even looking at what's available from TransUnion and Equifax, I would definitely recommend TransUnion out of the two of them. Yes?
So, you know how you get once a year you can do your credit checking, and what would be the most reliable, safest one of all? You know, they have about 4 or 5 different ones that they
Yep.
use.
So far, like I said, my experience has been TransUnion is one of the better ones for sure. Yeah, there is other ones out there and everything else, and
Equifax and some of those.
Yep, and there are even some free ones out there, and of course, then you get back into the whole question of, well, why is this third-party company doing this for me for free? And you got to kind of look into the details and a little license agreement. In general, the two big ones, I would definitely say that's TransUnion and Equifax, and actually with Equifax, they even got themselves hacked a few years ago. So that's doesn't say much because my own mother actually got caught up in that. And when they get into a credit company and get your information there, it's literally everything about you. We're talking your date of birth, your social insurance number, every address that you've lived at throughout your life, who your employers were. So that type of information you can't get back. You cannot change and get a new social insurance number if that information is leaked out. Unfortunately, Equifax actually offered her, I think, 1 year free of credit monitoring, which working in this kind of industry, I was a little confused at that because after the year, the scammers still have that information. They still know her birth date. They still know her SIN. So I'm not sure how a year's worth of monitoring is supposed to help anybody, but that's a whole nother matter. And of course, this will end up on YouTube, so Equifax they can feel free to call me and ask me about all this. Yes, you had another question.
Yeah, so when the banks do your credit check, who do they do it for? Like when you go for somebody at the bank and they do a credit check. do they-
It all depends on the institution.
The bank itself
They
goes
may
to one of
check
those
either.
organizations.
Exactly, they may check either. It depends on the bank.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. And there was another question. Yes.
What do you use these companies for, credit checking?
To make sure that, so for example, there was a case that I had dealt with where somebody had some of their information and identity taken, and they were a public figure. So their picture was all over the internet, their autograph, AKA signature, was all over the internet. So people were making passports with this person's name on it, signing up for new loans, signing up for new credit cards, doing all kinds of things with their name and signature and everything else. So when people think of identity theft, and a lot of people I deal with, one of the most common things I hear when they bring their computers to me in my workplace is, I don't have anything, I don't have any money, I don't really have credit cards or investments. That's not the point. It isn't at all. Even if you had nothing, well, 6 months from now you find out you owe $300,000 to a mortgage and you never signed up for one. So it's not even about what you have. They'll take your identity and they'll use that to get other stuff. And you will spend the time, even though you didn't do it, and I'm sure you could prove it, you'll end up with lawyers and dealing with banks and dealing with this and that kind of hassle. Just, with some of this, if we can diffuse it before it happens, it's a lot less work. Okay, so almost all the scams, doesn't matter what it is, whether it's coming through your phone, coming through email, it's coming over your cell phones, they usually try to manipulate the same things over and over. And it doesn't matter when it is. It's 100 years ago with the Nigerian prince scam. You better invest now or else you'll lose that opportunity, or trying to sell somebody the Brooklyn Bridge. They all rely on simple psychology techniques, and they make use of these things. The people that actually write the scripts that these people sit down in the call centers and just read from, they're people that understand human behavior, and they manipulate it. Not any worse or less than some of the companies that are involved in marketing and advertising. We've just taken some of that concept that they use to manipulate behavior, and now we've gone over to the criminal side with it instead of just trying to get you to buy the latest pair of running shoes. So the criminal element, always use that sense of urgency. That is one of the biggest ones that they rely on, because that requires you to make snap decisions. Your grandchild's been arrested, your computer's infected, your identity's been leaked. You have to deal with this now, right now. Those kind of things bypass pretty much a lot of your intelligent thinking about this stuff, and that's usually the stuff that happens where afterwards the most common thing people will say is, I can't believe I fell for this. Well, it's not that your rational side of your thinking fell for it. It's your instant decision making, and that's what they exploit, because you're not going to make that same level of decision making on a snap judgment with a lot of this stuff. But if you know that this is what they're doing on the phone, it usually diffuses it, and all of a sudden you don't feel that level of panic anymore. Fear, of course, is the other thing. The big flashing thing on your computer screen with the big warning that you better not shut it off now or else, and this type of fear. And that same thing, it's a lot of the scams are based on that in some way, shape, or form. Even with sympathy, getting donations for the war in Ukraine, or the ice storm that happened across Essex County, and we're just taking in money for it. It's to get your sympathy and rely on your ability of just being a regular human and helping other people. So to me, some of these ones are the dirtiest one, because they're actually manipulating the fact that we're decent people and trying to help somebody. And of course, with some of the investment scams and get-rich-quick scams, a lot of that is the fear of missing out. So they want you to make some kind of decision on this right away, or else you'll lose this great opportunity. And again, like I said, if you really boil down the psychology behind a lot of this, it's a lot of stuff a lot of advertising and marketing companies do to get you to buy stuff or get you some kind of activity from you. But we're taking that same kind of activity and we're using it for criminal purposes. Yes?
The local one, they will look for a local lead, some tragedy, and then start a GoFundMe page.
Absolutely, yes.
And because it's a local, so you will feel more connected.
It would be nice if we could look at the world as everything is nice and honest, and us as good people, you find some GoFundMe to help somebody, or donate to the fires in Northern Ontario, or donate to the people in Ukraine. It makes us feel good by helping other people. They need our help. But yes, scammers will exploit that as...
Local connection. It will not be when Ukraine or something.
That's right.
Some tragedy
Oh yeah.
happens in your town.
All of these scams don't necessarily happen worldwide. It could be something down to the local level. With some of the grandparent scams where they're calling you up and saying it's the police and you have to pay this fine or bail money for your grandchild. There is cases in Windsor where someone will show up at your home and collect the money from you. Or when you leave to go to the bank to go and deal with this emergency, all of a sudden there's different people walking around the back of your house to see if you're still home. So it's not just on a global scale. This stuff happens on a local and very personal scale as well. Yep.
Is there a way to check, like I see something for Ukraine, and I'm at the point now was, I don't want to donate because you hear so many scams, but the other part of me wants to donate. So
Well, of course.
how would you is there a way to check to see if it's a legitimate?
Absolutely. Look into, instead of whatever the ad is, or the pop-up, or the email, and if it's saying it's the Red Cross, well, don't deal with it through the email.
Yeah, you do.
Go to the Red Cross's website, and they may feature an individual spot where you can donate to Ukraine, or, United Way, or whatever else. If it's a company or GoFundMe, well, look into who these actual people are and just take a moment to make that decision. Because you're right, you want to help people, you want to do things, but look into it, that's all. Or go directly to the company yourself and donate the money yourself instead of through whatever medium it is.
And
Yes.
click the link that they give you.
Yeah, exactly. Ignore all of that. If you see, it's a email from the Red Cross saying, donate to Ukraine, instead of using the link in the email, just open up the internet and go to the Red Cross. So those kind of things diffuse that ability for them to scam you on it and just say it's a GoFundMe page for someone who needs a kidney somewhere. Well, look into it and see if it's actually a real story. There's been several lately on the buy and sell pages in Windsor. And, I found this dog and he got hit and we can't find the owner. Please post this. So they'll share this, and then a week later, they'll take the dog picture out and put up a fake real estate listing. So look into these things, because I was looking at one of them for somebody. Somebody asked me, is this real? And I looked into it, and it was a picture of a dog from a New York Times story 4 years ago. So if you just take a moment and look into this stuff, you can diffuse a lot of these scams. Actually, in going backwards, in mentioning the grandparent scam before, if you do get a call and you think there might be some legitimacy to it, one of your grandchildren might be in trouble, might need help, might need something, just call their family. Or, if they're been arrested up in Kingston and they need bail money, call the Kingston Police Department. There's a lot of things that you can do to check into this stuff first instead of just worrying about whether or not it might have been legitimate. So make your own phone calls. Any of these scams or emails or phone calls or all that stuff, as soon as you take some time to deal with it, it will diffuse a lot of the errors that you might make in human judgment in getting scammed in the first place. Yes, Anna?
I had one scam that's, you didn't even mention there. I had a call from customs in the US that my cousin had come over from Europe.
Right,
He was
right.
in Europe, and that he did have some papers and he needed $800 to get out. Well, the scam was obviously stupid because it was a cousin I didn't like. So
That's right, but you're right, it could have been. That's right. So they will come up with some kind of information to try to get you to respond quickly. And exactly, it's trying to get through customs. That's a time-sensitive thing. They want you to make some kind of decision quickly. So any of this stuff, tell them, you'll call them back, tell them, oh, I have to talk to my husband, my wife, I got to talk to my if my computer's having a problem, I'll ask my grandkid and I'll call you back. Whatever it is you want to say, put off the decision-making of whatever the call is. There's nothing that needs to be decided on in seconds. So any of these scams or whatever level of urgency they want to tell you about, you have time to deal with it is the reality. If there was actually a problem with your computer, if there was actually a problem with your grandchild, if something was actually going on, you have time to deal with it. So if you take away that rapid decision making that humans in general are not great at, or a lot better at thinking things through. And honestly, dealing with the Brain Injury Association, that's kind of a exact thing that's going to keep you guys probably less likely to get scammed than some other people. Because even in general, I know I have a family member who does have a brain injury, and it will usually be anything that we ask or put to task will be, well, I need some time to think about that. That's his usual answer on stuff, which is perfect. That will diffuse a lot of this stuff, actually. So if you want to make that your go-to without feeling guilty about it, you just tell him, Kevin said I can say that.
So the grandparents scam, it's like common sense. Why didn't you call his or her parents?
Yeah, and they want to get past that common sense thing because they want you to decide quickly, panic. And when you panic, afterwards you're thinking, well, why didn't he call his mom, or why didn't he call this, or all those kind of things you think of after.
Grandkid can
charge for 2 days.
That's right, it'll be a good lesson for them. That's right, that's right.
You didn't send me a card.
Yes,
It was okay.
I just want to say that one time I got in, I tried to call Canada Pension. I
Right.
Googled it, and there was a number that came up, and I thought it was the Canada Pension office, so I
Right.
called, and the person said, how can I help you? He didn't answer Canada Pension.
right, because it's just a generic phone number, yeah.
And then all of a sudden, I saw his little pointer on my computer screen.
It could be a problem, that's right.
And I explained my problem with Canada Pension, and then all of a sudden I saw Western Union going across my screen. And I said, you're not Canada Pension,
Right.
And he said, yes, I am. And I said, then why do you have Western Union flashing across?
Right.
And then he hung up on me.
Well, of course,
Later that night, I got an email from Western Union asking me to call them.
Mhm.
And I called them, and they said, did you put through for $350 today? I said, no, I didn't.
mhm.
So I got.
It sounds like a cascading scam is basically what it is. So it probably wasn't even Western Union you were speaking to. Yeah, they'll try to find any way to get around, and like I said, the best way for you to diffuse any of this stuff, I'll call you back. And right there, like I said, anyone who's a legitimate law enforcement or government agent or anybody else, they'll never be insulted about you telling them that. They want you to be safe.
So now I'm scared to call, to Google numbers for government.
Google usually is pretty good at getting those scam numbers out, but they'll pop in sometimes, so you do have to be cautious, that's all. Yes?
In your opinion, is there a time when they actually would give up? In other words, they call 100 times and I don't answer the phone 100 times. Would there be a time where they would say, that is not...
It's hard to say because they're passing your
That's
number
a
around.
call, right?
Yeah,
That's a
they're
call, yeah.
so
Okay.
a individual call center may give up on calling you, but your phone number's out in
Yeah.
lists and somebody else will find it, they'll keep calling you. So once those numbers are out there, it's hard to get that genie back in the bottle.
Would you then say it's safe to say change the phone number?
Yeah, you can
Or
change
would
a
they
phone
have
number,
that too?
but we're literally at a point in the world right now where there's only so many phone numbers.
Yeah.
So they're basically recycling old numbers. So you get a new phone number from your service provider, and it belonged to somebody 2 years ago, and that person got scammed using that phone number. You're gonna keep getting phone calls. So it's hard to take that phone number and get it off of these lists.
I have another question.
Yes,
Can I actually create a fake Red Cross website as I'm sitting here?
of course you can, in
But
seconds.
then if you said that we should call that Red Cross, that's the only way then to call, to be safe.
Right.
Okay.
But you have to try and find that Red Cross information from somewhere you trust. That's the best thing you can do.
Okay.
Yes,
Sir, what she said, if you go for looking for the number to call, I learned personally that they will have Yelp page come up or
Right.
something else come up and all, and then that's where the SEOs, they put the scammer and
Yeah.
all.
So-
you could not get to the real person or the.
You have to go down to find
You have
it.
to come down and
yes.
see.
So what she's mentioning is a lot of the search engines, when you go and look for something, like you said, how do you find the real phone number for Red Cross? If you type it in on a search engine like Bing or Yahoo or Google
Even on
search,
Even on Google.
that's
I've
right.
seen that.
They're taking a lot more money now, and it's even Google's definitely upping the amount of times that when you search for something, the first results you see all have the little word ad beside it. So that's getting, Google used to be a lot better with that stuff, but I'll give them credit. They do have to make money. It costs money to run that.
So you're
But
saying you have to read the address bar?
that's right. You know, you see a listing, this is Red Cross, but it says ad beside it. And,
Right.
you know, it's from another company and the website is not redcross.ca. You know, you might see that and then see another one. And then as you get further in the page, you may actually see redcross.ca.
Could we show as an example, because if everybody could Google, like, I found it, that I Googled my attorney's name. And the first few pages are the Bar Association and the Yelp and this and that.
That's right.
So all did not go to her, and I was like, why did it go? So it was.
Yeah, all paid for
So
stuff.
she doesn't use a web page or website or anything. So these are the aggregators who are using her number.
Yes.
To show that, like, oh, we collected all we are the directory for all the lawyers or something. So it's not going to the actual thing.
Yeah, you do have to kind of get used to how to feed through when you ask Google or Bing or Yahoo. You do have to kind of get a little more savvy in trying to see what those links that are telling you. Actually, that's a homework assignment that we can give you guys until the next session. Take whatever search you're looking for. If it is Red Cross Canada or Microsoft or one of the companies or whatever it is that you're searching for, go through the main search engines. And it'll kind of give you guys an idea of the quality of the different search engines. So if you were to look up the Brain Injury Association Windsor and look for it on Google, or you look for it on Bing or look for it on Yahoo, you'll notice there is a difference in quality of the answers. So some people just go with whatever the search engine is that's already installed in your computer or whatever search engine your browser uses. If you use Microsoft Edge, it may default to using Bing as its search engine. It's fine as long as it's giving you the answers that you guys want. But if you notice there's a huge difference in quality of the answers you're getting from some of these, just change your search engine and use one of the other ones that you prefer. Okay, so if you already know it's a scam when you hear whatever their pitch is, just hang up, as I mentioned before. Don't bother engaging or taunting them or leading them on and just to, waste their time after 15 minutes, they finally give up. Don't bother with any of that because like I said, on their view, it may be that they were able to get you to talk to them. It's just maybe that caller might not have been good enough to get you, so another caller will call anyway. Or your name will stay on lists and people will keep calling you. So like I said, don't bother engaging. It's not worth the trouble it may cause. So if you know it's a scam and you understand what's going on, just hang up the phone on them. If you're not sure it's a scam, again, I'll call you back, or I need to think about it, or I need to talk to so-and-so first. Use that as if you're not sure, because it may be the police calling, it may be Canada Revenue calling, and it's possible. That's what these scams rely on, is the fact that it's possible. And that's how they con you. Tell them you'll call them back. Nobody who is actually a legitimate caller will get upset with you for this. Same thing, if it's the police calling, they're going to arrest you or else. Afterwards, people think about this and it's like, it wouldn't be very effective if they actually called a criminal and said, we're coming. That's the silliest thing in the world. But at the time, they get you scared, they get you to panic. But if it was somebody saying it's Windsor Police and you have to deal with this right away, it's like, okay, I'll call you back at the Windsor Police Station and we'll deal with it. If it's a real officer, he won't get upset with you. Yes?
I was at a hospital the other day with my husband, and I got a call on my phone, and I didn't know the number, but I've got a lot of workers that are calling me, so I didn't know who was one of them. So I answered,
Right.
and automatically they hung up. And I thought, I wonder if it's somebody that is trying to get in touch with me. So I called the number back, and a gentleman answered the phone, and I said, did you just call me? And he said, well, no. And he knew, they used his phone number.
Yes, absolutely. Yep.
And so I called him, and he's like, I don't know anything about what you're talking about. But I've never had that before. Where they
Yeah, it's getting more common because the call display thing, like I mentioned earlier today, the call display thing has been shut down in Canada with the technology. If someone was to receive a phone call from your phone number, it doesn't mean that your phone is infected or your computer's infected or they have any of your ID. It's got nothing to do with you. They're just pretending they're a phone number and they're calling people on it. So it's not necessarily associated with where that number came from. And a lot of times if you call, you notice a missed call from some random number, you call it back. By the time you get around to calling it back, the number's already shut down.
Yeah,
It's already gone.
that happens.
So that's a very common thing. And if you can't call them back to find out who was on there and all you get is this number is not in service, just imagine being law enforcement trying to chase these guys down. So it is unfortunately a very large game. We say it's a kind of a global game of whack-a-mole, because anytime you find out where these guys might be located physically, you find there's a call center in a certain city. By the time people get there and get organized to go and take them down, they've already unplugged everything and they're somewhere else. So a lot of this is very difficult. So the best thing to diffuse all of it is to let you guys know this stuff beforehand.
And are they located around here, or are they in India?
All over. All over. Yeah, there's no particular place or country that has any immunity from their call centers being in that country. I know there's a perception. A lot of people do get a lot of calls associated with call centers in India, but that is by far not the only place these calls come from. And people from India, they don't like those people either. So, the majority.
Yesterday, government of India has shut down 100,000 or more fake.
Yeah, they're going after them too, absolutely.
They're calling the Indians also, don't worry about it.
That's right, they are. They absolutely are. So.
Equal opportunity.
And it's a difference in the cost of living and income earning potentials and everything else where these places can pop up and convince people to work for them. But it's not any particular country at all.
There's a documentary on Netflix, if anybody wants to watch on these, it's called Jamtara. This is totally like high schoolers who are running in a small village that doesn't have running water. They're sitting there and they're running this scam. You think that they have a call center? No, this is a bunch of teenagers who are doing this.
Yeah, and it may not even be teenagers, maybe full-grown adults, but like you said, it may be in a small community that literally isn't even technology advanced enough in that community to have running water, and some call center head comes down and offers these guys the ability to make some money. So it's not that they're necessarily bad or evil or anything else. It's that sometimes they're just people trying to get by in a community where there is no opportunity. Other times it gets dark, and I mean really dark. We're talking forced labor situations where it's literally a warehouse of callers and somebody is walking up and down the aisles with a machine gun, making sure those calls are made. So when you get dragging them on for 15 minutes and they lose their mind on you over the phone, there's some dark reasons behind some of it. So instead of whether or not it's just somebody trying to make a living or it's somebody who's literally in forced labor, like I said, don't bother engaging. It's not worth it. Yes?
On my cell phone, I always get messages from somewhere with a Chinese message.
Yeah, somewhere some list is out there with your phone number and the list is to send out messages in Chinese.
I just say block it.
That's right. But to try to get your phone number back from wherever it is impossible. It's almost the same equivalent as you complaining about there being Pizza Hut flyers in your mailbox. Somewhere along the line, somebody's making money to make sure they're there. There's nothing you can really do about it other than when you see it, throw in the garbage.
The other day, I got a text and it said, "Hey Jack, how you doing?" And I was like, "You got the wrong number." But then I noticed afterwards there was like 5 different numbers on it, 2 at the same time.
It might have been a group just trying to get one person to respond.
But I went back in, put it at it, and blocked them.
Absolutely. Yeah, you block them, just delete them. Take whatever steps you can on your end, but as long as you go into any of this stuff with technology, understanding you can't put that information genie back in the bottle. Just delete these scams, don't answer the phone, stuff like that, and it won't be as bad as what you think. Okay, so after, yep.
I just want to know, is there any situation where people actually leave a message that it leads you into something? Because my thing is don't answer it when I don't know the number.
Absolutely.
I figure they'll leave a message. Is there anything out there now?
It's
that
less
they
likely.
Leave a message and they get
It can happen, but with leaving a message, you're dealing with time now. By the time you call a lot of these back, they're already gone. So it's not beneficial to them to leave a message.
If they did, then just leave it for a day or two. to
That's
see.
right, and then by the time you go and deal with it, it's already gone, or they've already moved on to
They
something
just
else.
didn't want to get suckered.
Yeah, it's
into
less
the future.
likely for them to leave a message. It can happen, but it's less likely, because there's no benefit to it. Okay? So, the next section, after getting done with all the fraud phone calls, something called scareware. And that's just an overall term for programs or software on your computer that's intended to scare you. So you'll somehow get a fake security program or fake virus program, or you click on an ad and you get bounced to a website and all of a sudden you get a big pop-up on your screen. Your computer's infected. Call this 1-800 number now. Don't shut down your computer or else. Again, it's all that fear and panic and trying to get you to do something quickly. So with this, most of the time, it's actually going, these are all just examples. They'll put Norton's logo, they'll put Microsoft's logo. It doesn't matter, you can just copy a logo off the internet and throw it on something. So I usually get information from people as they, after they've gotten scammed, and the first thing I hear is, well, it looked really legitimate. And then I ask them, okay, what does legitimate look like? And then you kind of see them cock their head for a second and realize, because then you start engaging in that non-rapid thinking and non-rapid decision making, and you get somebody to take a moment and think about what's going on. So you can just copy a logo, you can copy a message, you can take a real email from PayPal, fill in your information in it and send it out, and it looks legit. So when you're dealing with this kind of stuff, like I said, we're dealing with the same kind of psychological tricks as we mentioned earlier. They want panic. They want you to decide on something right away. They want to scare you. Tell you if you shut off your computer, then everything will be destroyed, or they're going after your identity. You better call right now or else. So all those kinds of things to elicit an immediate response is what they're relying on. So most of the times when stuff like this happens, for most people, because we're dealing with, sometimes this would normally come from a fake security program, like some free antivirus that you downloaded off the internet, you install it in your computer, and then within a day this pops up on your screen to get you to call them. That is less likely now because the antivirus programs and some of the security programs block this stuff from getting installed. So it's happening less often. What's happening more often is you can go to a legitimate website. You go to WDIV in Detroit to go check the weather, and there's an ad on the side of the page. A lot of these ads are just farming ads. They pay to have that advertisement there, and the ad company just rotates ads. Whatever shows up, shows up. They'll hack that, not necessarily hack the website that you're on. They'll hack the advertiser. So now when you click that picture of whatever is going on, it bounces you to a website that does this. Within a little while, they fix the problem and everything else, but they usually catch a few people in the process. So most of the time when you see pop-ups like this on your computer warning you of some impeding doom is going to happen, most of the time you realize, oh, I'm just on an internet page. Because people will see this and they'll think it's the computer telling them. And again, in my workplace, I'll have somebody call me on the phone and they'll say, well, is this web page legitimate? And the first thing I'll ask them is, are you on the internet? And they'll say, yes. I say, okay, close the internet. Oh, thank you. And all of a sudden it disappears. Sometimes they'll lock it on your page so you can't get rid of it. And there's steps that you can go through. You can clean up your computer and all that kind of stuff. But the majority of times when you see these big scary warnings, you figure out it's just a web page. And if you close the internet, all of a sudden the warning disappears. Okay, so as I mentioned, it's mostly from internet pages. It might be from fake security programs, but our security, like especially with Microsoft Windows, is actually really good because it contains its own antivirus, it has its own firewall, it's got its own malware protection. So you actually, if you're using Windows or current Windows, you probably don't need to buy anything else. I'd recommend a program called Malwarebytes. It's actually really, really effective. Let's look at it this way. Instead of the antivirus scanner scanning for viruses, Malwarebytes will go after more internet and junk and stuff like that. It can handle viruses, but it's definitely really good at getting some of these fake alerts and fake security and all those kinds of software out of your system. Of course, another source of some of the scareware is just they're using the same scaring tactic in your emails. You'll get an email, it's from McAfee and you better renew or else your security will expire, or some kind of stuff like that. And of course, that's made legitimate because when you do actually have some of these accounts and everything else, that's the same kind of marketing craziness that they actually send out to their real customers. Oh, your security is going to expire, you're not going to be safe. So those kinds of things, like I said, these scammers, they prey on a lot of stuff that some of the legitimate marketers and advertisers, they use the same techniques. So I think maybe the two of them need to sit down and come up with a different way in dealing with customers. Yes?
I'm not sure where this fits in, but somebody told me, and I don't know if it's true, that when you go to stores now and you can have them email your receipt,
Yes.
that they're selling your email.
They might. You would
So there's
have to
no-
ask them, hey, is this
there's
staying
no
with
way
your
of knowing.
company, or are you sharing my email? Are you selling my email? You can ask those questions.
Okay, so there's,
Yeah.
I mean, you ask the person at the cash at the store, most of them probably don't
And
know.
that's right.
That's
When
the
you're dealing with
problem.
better companies, I find usually cashiers with some of the larger companies are a little more educated because it's formal training. Like Shoppers, for example. If a scammer sends you in to buy a whole bunch of gift cards, and you're supposed to send the gift cards to the scammer, you go into a Shoppers location, they'll probably stop you and ask you, why are you doing this? If this might be a scam or something else. So they take their time and actually share that information and try to protect their customers. There are certainly other businesses that do take their time to do that, but no, not all of them do.
Yeah, 'cause-
That frontline cashier has no idea of
Yeah.
what the
Do we sell
company
your
does
email?
with
I
your
don't know.
email or anything else, so you can ask still.
Yeah.
Absolutely, it's
But
still
there's
worth
no way to
asking.
find out.
Well, you can contact the company themselves.
Yeah,
Yeah.
good luck.
Yeah, sometimes, you're right, if you can even find a phone number.
Yes.
Okay, so as I mentioned with a lot of these scareware softwares and pop-ups on your screen that the world is gonna end, most of the time, just close your internet and all of a sudden it goes away. So they've resorted to that because a lot of their other techniques people don't fall for as much, or antivirus programs will find this stuff before it bothers you. But an internet web page, like I said, they can hack a page for a few hours, get a few dozen people that might fall for the scam in that meantime before they fix the page and put everything back to normal. But in the meantime, you might have gotten sent there accidentally, and just close out your internet if you're able to. If you can't close out the internet and it's got the page locked so you can't actually hit close on it, I'll just try restarting the computer. If it keeps popping up every time you restart the computer, then you can look at cleaning it out or doing a virus scan or asking somebody else for help. Go to a computer service or ask a friend or relatives that's good with this kind of stuff, get them to get that out of there. But in general, this stuff is not presenting a harm. At this point, you know it's a scam, so all it is a nuisance. Every time you turn on your computer, that's on your screen, you want to get rid of it. So it's not really dangerous, but you do still want to get rid of it.
Yeah,
Yep, go ahead.
I had Norton virus,
Yep,
and I used my Visa one time to renew it,
right.
and then I got a new Visa, and the next year, they were sending me thousands.
That's right. So
thousands.
that's kind of what I'm saying. Those emails coming in might have actually come from Norton, and the scammers know that Norton sends emails like that, so they send the same kind of emails to get people caught up in it. So,
You have to update your
Yeah.
credit card information. So I said, I will never use my credit card again. When I can go to Staples and get it for $15, and they charge me $175.
absolutely.
Excuse me, can I
Yes.
add to that list? From your store, I was once told, when your page crashes and then it says you want to restore, never restore.
That's right, hit no, because
Yes.
if you hit yes, it'll go right back to that page again. It is a big concern with online shopping and banking. I can tell you without a doubt, any question in my mind, after doing this, as long as I've done this stuff, online shopping and banking is safe. The entire planet revolves around this. There are billions of transactions per second going across the globe. The communications that they do bank to bank, or from a retailer to the debit terminal, or from an ATM over to the bank, all those kinds of things are secure, very secure. Every one of these companies, whether it's MasterCard, Visa, the banks, it doesn't matter. They spend billions per year keeping ahead of scammers, keeping this stuff safe. It is safe. Most of the problems that you're going to run into with online shopping or online banking are usually at the user's end. It's not to say that you're at blame for this stuff, but think of it in terms of problems that you might encounter at an instant teller. You using the instant teller is not the problem. If you're using it and there's somebody standing over your shoulder watching you do that, that's where the insecure part happens. So with computer stuff, if your computer's infected, if you're browsing a whole bunch of unsafe websites and you open up another page to go to your bank at the same time, user behavior is where the weakness with a lot of this is. Some of the banks, same thing, you log into your bank account and people have their password is, their dog's name, and their dog's name is all over their Facebook page. That's not a problem with banking, that's not a problem with shopping. That's a user-created problem.
So going incognito, does that block anything if you're going?
It blocks
to your bank?
cookies. That's it.
That's all.
Yep, it blocks it from storing cookies. Some cookies are to your benefit. You're on Amazon, you've picked out 5 different things. It might store information in a cookie. When you hit checkout, it's got that information ready to go. That's just an example. But cookies basically function with the web page of what you're doing, or they're paid for by advertisers. So if you looked up golf clubs on a website, every other website you go to, you see golf clubs. That's from cookies. So going incognito blocks cookies, but it doesn't do much else. So it's for some people it's a false sense of security because they're not quite sure what it does. So like I was saying, we do have to kind of wrap up, but in general, like I said, online shopping and banking and all those kinds of things online are definitely safe to do. You just have to make sure that on your end, you're practicing safe behaviors. You have unique accounts and unique emails. You're keeping your computer safe and secure and updated. If you do those things, there's nothing unsafe about the online banking or shopping. One of the things that we want to make sure whenever you're doing any kind of purchasing online is, like we mentioned in the last session there, about web addresses. When they have the HTTPS, that means it's a secure website. So if you log into a bank and it doesn't have HTTPS, it might not be the actual bank website. So you have to make sure it's a secure site with a secure login. You can also, I would highly recommend using some kind of either escrow service, which is kind of a man-in-the-middle payment. PayPal is a very well-known one. So you buy something, you pay with PayPal, PayPal pays the person that's buying something from you. So they never get exposed to what your credit card information is or your other information. It's just paid from them. So you can do kind of stuff like that with PayPal, Apple Pay, Google Pay. Use those as an intermediary that protects your own accounts. The other thing that you can do is with your credit cards, a lot of them have purchase protection insurance on the credit card themselves. You can even have a separate card, $500 card that you only use on Amazon. And that way you don't have to worry about your main credit card getting into trouble. Worst case scenario, it's only a $500 limit, or you're only allowed to spend a certain amount per purchase. After that, they would actually block it, so you're not allowed to use your credit card to go and buy a new Tesla, but you can pick up a new pair of socks on Amazon. So if it has set limits, has insurance, or it's separate from your other accounts, you can use that too. Yes?
The PayPal services or Google Pay, have any of them ever been hacked?
I've had PayPal since I can't even remember when, and I've Never heard of any major hacks with it. Of course, people target these things all the time. They're under constant barrage. I feel sorry for some of the big brand name companies just constantly trying to be hacked so people get into their information. But no, I don't have any particular knowledge of any of these getting hacked.
One last question, it's not about online shopping, it's about like purchases in the store.
Yep.
Are you better off to use your phone app to do that, or app?
As long as you're doing the same thing as the online shopping and online banking on your computer, you're keeping your device safe and your behavior with it safe. If your phone is safe, you're not downloading a bunch of junk apps or clicking on links. If you're safe, then yes, it's safe to do with it. Absolutely.
So just the phone is just as good as the credit card itself?
Absolutely, yep. And it has the same weaknesses,
And
the
tap-
user.
The tap as opposed to a pin?
Yes, so if you keep your phone and all that kind of stuff safe, then it's
So, I
sufficient.
mean, your credit card itself, is the pin or the tap better?
Either or.
Okay.
Yep. There is insurance on tap up to a certain amount and everything else. If you lose your credit card, you can call them, they'll cancel the card and they'll cover some of the purchases in the meantime. So each bank has their own rules and their own set, but overall, either are equally safe.
Thank you.
Yes?
This is in the news that tapping, like people had, like I have my wallet in here in the bag, and somebody came with the scanner thingy and standing next to me, and they would just get the
That's correct, yes.
information.
Yep.
So how much time does it take to put a PIN number? Like I have asked my bank to disable the tapping function on my.
Yeah,
card.
I actually do that with some of my cards as well.
So it's
Yep.
like all my bank cards and all, it's like, no.
There is insurance on them and everything else. It's not even that I'm not comfortable that the bank will cover it if there's a problem. I don't want to have to even deal with the
Yeah,
problem
I
in the
don't want to
first
deal with
place.
that.
I don't want to spend the afternoon on the phone and calling them and calling the credit card. So
Because,
I may get my money back, but I still had to spend my time dealing with it. So I just shut it off.
At the till, they will say, oh, you can tap it. I'm like, no, I do not have the tap function.
That's right. Yeah, I do that with some of my cards. And again, it's not that I don't trust that the bank will help me or don't trust that they won't refund the money. So I don't want to deal with it. I don't want to make all those phone calls. I got a lot of things to do instead of chasing that stuff around. Very last thing, there's a lot of discussion on whether or not you should leave stuff on. The events of this week should prove that for a lot of people with the ice storms and everything else, and the number of phone calls I've gotten already because something blown on their computer. Just shut it off. Back in the days when, the early 80s, when we're just starting to get computers at home and it'd take 15 minutes to boot up your computer, we don't have that problem anymore. You hit the button, it's on within a few seconds, most computers. So leaving it on all the time doesn't benefit you. You're not saving any time in your life. Shut it off. It'll save power, it'll prevent problems, and in case there's electrical issues, it'll definitely keep your equipment a lot safer. All right, and there was a question about the actual booklet. We're in that transition between the first and second edition, so we're waiting for that second edition to come out. If you don't have a copy of it or you want to recommend a copy to somebody, if you go to the Windsor Police website, on their main page, there's a little scroller that you can scroll through the top banner. On the last one, it features a link that'll bring you right to a full publication online. And the very last thing, any questions about any stuff in the presentation or just the Brain Injury Association in general? Of course, you can get a hold of Anna there. Questions about the presentation, you can actually get a hold of me directly. Something that you would like to ask or like to know. And over the last week, I actually had a transition in jobs, and I was voted on to the board of directors for Crime Stoppers. So,
Congratulations.
if there's any information you would like as professional help, you can get a hold of me at my workplace. And if there's any information you would like about doing anything out in the public, you're welcome to get a hold of me at Crime Stoppers. All right, everybody, have a wonderful week.